Hey, what's up? It's Austin here, and in this video, I want to show you a couple different techniques that you can use in your drum arrangements to make them a little bit more exciting, make them a little bit more dynamic, and they can make your drum bus knock just a little bit more in your mix. So we're going to take a look at all of those in 1 second, but before we do, if you like this video, make sure that you subscribe to the Waves channel. They are constantly releasing a ton of amazing content, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. Let's go ahead and let's jump in and take a look at this. Here is what we're working with. It is a pretty kind of dense, big, spacey arrangement, and the drums sound like this before any of our processing in this tutorial. So they're sounding fine, but I always like to push my drums a little bit more, and one of my favorite ways to do that is by adding saturation to the drum bus. My favorite saturation that I've been using lately is the Magma BB tubes from Waves. This thing is incredible. It just has a really nice way of kind of adding saturation to the lows and the top without it getting super crushed or super brittle. So we're just gonna kind of adjust this to taste as we listen. Okay, so I'm gonna drive up this beauty a little bit, drive up this beast a little bit. I'm gonna pull back on the output just so we don't think it sounds better just because it's louder. And then other than that, I'm pulling back on the dry wet. Let's go ahead and let's just check this and make sure that we're not adding just a ton of volume. So without BB tubes, it sounds like this. Looks like we're peaking around like -6, -7. Let's go ahead and engage this and just make sure that we're not adding a bunch of volume and losing headroom. So we've actually gained a dB of headroom. Let's see what this sounds like in the mix. Let's see if it pushes everything forward. Now we've gotten that kick and that snare to really pop out of the mix, and we haven't eaten up a bunch of our headroom that's gonna affect something like limiting or doing some bus compression later on down the road. We just have drums that feel really, really big. Let's go ahead and let's add a little bit of excitement to the snare drum, because right now it's just a pretty typical kind of trap snare. What I wanna do is add a room sound behind that. So I've just duplicated that track, and then I just decided to pitch this snare verb that we're gonna be adding. I pitched it down 5 semitones in Cubase. You can do it in pretty much any DAW. Waves also has a pitch shifter that you could use if you wanna do that. And then let's go ahead and let's start making this an actual reverb tail. Here's a cool little trick that I think not a lot of people use when they're doing something like layering a snare drum to kind of give it a different texture. I'm gonna use ADT reels because this kind of has that very speed effect where it can pan things out. So you can see here on the left and right, we're gonna pan different like duplicates of this essentially. And then what's gonna happen is it kind of allows us to get almost like a Haas effect, like shifted wide signal out of this. Without it, it just kind of softens it up and widens it up, and then now we can add something like a big reverb. So here's a reverb that I've just kind of finessed an H-Reverb. Here are my settings if you want to copy them. It's about 2 seconds. If you want to take a screenshot of this and copy everything, feel free to. Here's what it sounds like. And then the last thing I want to do is a little bit of bandpass filtering. So we're just going to use Q2 just to take out some highs and lows, just so it doesn't sit right over top of our snare drum. And then when we play it with a snare, we're going to basically just have this come in on every other hit. And that adds quite a bit of depth and dimension in the actual drum arrangement. Now I want to add a little bit of movement and motion. So what I'm going to do is I have this cool little loop down here. It's kind of a little percussion loop. It sounds a little bit like this. And it already has some panning kind of baked into that sample, but I want to get this out of that just typical left and right space. I'm going to add Brauer Motion. This is a really cool way to kind of play around with your stereo field and get things to just be a little bit outside of 100% left and 100% right. And this is just a cool little production effect, so I'm not really concerned about it, shifting phase or getting lost in mono. I really just want to add some sauce. So I basically just threw on a preset called Life on the Edge, and then basically just shifted around a bunch of different stuff to give me a cool little effect. So it's just kind of getting that out of my left and right, and it's kind of pushing it to the back of my mix, which is really nice. Now it can just kind of sit on top of all of my drums. Here's what it sounds like with it. I like engaging that because it kind of pushes it to the back. I don't want that to be so up in my face, but if I turn it down, it just kind of gets lost in that dense mix. So now we have this really cool kind of spatial effect that can add a lot of different width and dimension to the drum arrangement. The last thing that I want to do is add a little bit of sauce to this hi-hat loop. It's just a little bit stale. It's pretty consistent, but what I want to do is I want to add something like retrofy and really kind of finesse this. Here we are in retrofy. As you can see, I have this on the 80 setting. I'm using the device. I think this is like the third selection, shifting up the tone, letting it squash a little bit. I don't have the space engaged at all, but I am adding noise, and I have that threshold set to where it kind of just gates itself automatically with that hi-hat. And then I have some like wow and flutter happening with mechanics. And with that said, it just gives me a nice little bit of texture. Again, kind of sends that, what would be really a mono hi-hat out to the sides by adding that vinyl noise. And it's just a cool way to, again, add a little bit of extra texture so it doesn't just sound like a pretty standard, you know, pop hip-hop arrangement. Now, by adding that BB tubes to the drum bus and just adding some of those extra little production elements in the mix, this is what the drum arrangement sounds like on top of everything. Sometimes it really is just little things that you can do in your production or in your mix that can really help transform an arrangement, add a ton of space, add a ton of character, add width, add texture. And these are just some of my favorites, but you can do this kind of technique with really any plugins. So if you like this video, make sure that you drop a like below, make sure that you subscribe to this Waves channel, and let us know in the comments what videos you might want to see on the Waves channel or what videos you might want me to dive into while I'm over here. Other than that, that's going to do it for this video. I'll see you guys soon. Much love. Peace.